Articles and Thoughts on Vedanta by Param Pujya Shri Sachidanandendra Saraswati Mahaswamiji, Adhyatma Prakasha Karyalaya, Hole Narsipur, Hasan, Karnataka, India. In this, we have been seeing aids to reflection on Vedanta. That 17 points we have seen. Today's is the 18th one. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. We shall first of all dispose of kindred Vedanta schools. These were mostly prejudiced in favor of the line of argument pursued by the Mimamsakas, who confined themselves to the exegesis of the Vedanta texts devoted to religious rites. Besides the Upasana-vadins, advocates of meditation, or the Dhyana Yoga Vadins, who held that seekers of the ultimate good are urged by Vedantic texts to meditate on Brahman in order to get freedom from bondage after the present body falls off. There were some other schools. So, besides the Upasana Vadins or the Dhyana Yoga Vadins, uh, Dhyana Niyoga Vadins, there were some other schools which maintained that freedom from bondage could be achieved in this very birth without the wisdom of the unity of the Absolute Atman. There was one school, for instance, which insisted that the seeker of release should perform obligatory and contingent karmas to avert the evil consequences that would necessarily befall one who fails to do those rites. Kamya karmas, religious works calculated to yield certain good effects desired, and karmas prohibited should be given up to ward off the resultant enjoyment in heaven or suffering in hell. The results of the fructifying karmas should be exhausted by submitting oneself to the consequences in the present birth. There being no remaining karma to desiderate another body anymore, the goal of resting in one's own intrinsic nature is thus reached without the need of attaining one's identity with Brahman. Now, these arguments have neither Shastraic sanction nor the support of the reason. There is not a single text that enjoins obligatory and contingent karmas to the, that is, nitya and naimittika karmas, to the exclusion of other karmas to attain final release. Besides, it passes one's understanding how the accumulated effects of all previous births are exhausted, or how one's samsaric nature is removed without the sublation of avidya by the wisdom of one's Brahmic nature. The school of Dhyana Niyogavadins was most probably the strongest opponent among all the doctrines of Vedanta, who Shankara had to contend with. Shankara devotees the major Shankara devotes the major portion of his bhashya on the Samanvaya Sutra to disarm this school. These Vedantins stoutly declared that texts devoted to describe the nature of Brahman would lose all their efficacy and would serve no purpose at all if they were not considered to present the object of meditation, which the seekers of the ultimate good were invariably urged to undertake. As against Shankara's tradition, they avowed that it is not right to hold that mere Shravana or the ascertainment of the import of texts could yield enlightenment effectively sufficient to subulate the delusion of the aspirant's transmigrated nature, just as one's fear is utterly removed when he understands the meaning of the proposition teaching the true nature of the rope mistaken for a snake. Shankara's main contribution to the traditional interpretation of the Upanishads was mainly to show how the Dhyana Niyoga doctrine was utterly opposed to the spirit of Upanishadic revelation, both exegetically and on rational grounds. The Acharya conclusively proved how all injunctions and prohibitions, as well as all other means of valid knowledge, remain unsubject only so long as the intuition of one's identity with Brahman has not dawned. Tasmat aham brahmasmi ityetadavasana eva sarve vidhayah sarvani cha pramanani. He insists throughout that the effect of the Vedantic teaching of reality is known directly by immediate intuition. Pratyakshavagambyamevedam phalam, and that it is impossible to deny the dawn of this intuition. न चेयम अवगति नोत्पद्यत इति शक्यम वक्तुम, or that it serves no purpose or that it is itself a delusion, since we know that avidya is sublated by its appearance and there is no knowledge that could sublate it. न चेयम अवगति नोत्पद्यते भ्रांतिरुवा इति शक्यम वक्तुम अविद्या निवृत्ति फलदर्शनात् बाधकांतराभावाच्च. Whatever concession the non traditional Vedantins were ready to show in favor of the Atmaikatva Vada or Brahmavada, they found it very difficult to reconcile themselves to the position of Shankara Vedanta, which insisted that the bare jnana or knowledge of Atma or Brahman as the only self existent entity was quite sufficient for the attainment of final release. This was most probably because of their unflinching allegiance to the Mimamsic dictum that the Vedic revelation was exclusively restricted to the facts which could not be ascertained through secular means of valid knowledge. The Mimamsakas maintained that the aim of the entire Veda was to enjoin karya, something to be done, and texts which did not enjoin karma were to be treated as purposeless or, where possible, as eulogist and subservient to injunctions. Accordingly, a particular school of Vedantis held that the Vedantas or Upanishads must be dismissed as useless since they did not enjoy any karmas, or they may be regarded as revealing the nature of the agent or the demigods subserving some karmas enjoined in the previous portion of the Veda, or as last alternative that they enjoin some karma like the Upasana revealed in the Upanishads themselves. There was a certain school of Vedantins who granted that there may be freedom accruing to seekers in this very life, and that this goal consisted in staying in the intrinsic nature of one's own self. This goal, according to them, however, could be reached by doing the obligatory and contingent rituals exclusively, and no realization of one's identity with Brahman is needed. The Dhyana Niyogavadin came forward with the further concession to the doctrine of the knowledge of Atman or Brahman. He denied, however, that the bare teaching concerning an existent entity was of any use. This knowledge of Atman, therefore, must be treated as presenting the object of meditation, which the aspirant for release was urged by the Shruti to practice. When the Vedantins of the traditional school pointed out that final release, being of the very nature of the eternal Brahman, requires no meditation, which could help in reaching only an eschatological goal, there came another school of Niyogavadins who said that the knowledge of Brahman itself could be achieved by practicing what is called Prapancha Pravilaya. According to their theory, all texts inclusive of those that refer to forms of Brahman had no purport other than to urge the dissolution of multiplicity, for as a matter of fact, the manifold world is really of the nature of Brahman and there is no multiplicity in Brahman. Shankara rejects this doctrine on two grounds. In the first place, we see no words implying any urging in texts describing Brahman, and Badarayana has established in Sutra 114, as has been explained at length in the Bhashya thereon, that all propositions devoted to teach the nature of Brahman were syntactically self complete in revealing that existent entity. In the second place, it cannot be supposed that an actually existing world of multiplicity can be dissolved, and even granting the possibility of this fact, we are driven to the repugnant conclusion that there could have remained no multiplicity at all at present, inasmuch as some one who attained release for the first time should have already dissolved it. The only alternative available, therefore, is that all multiplicity is a superimposition due to avidya, and in that case, the only course open to the Shruti is to reveal the real nature of Brahman, so that avidya may be sublated. Moreover, the jiva or individual self cannot be supposed to be included in the manifold world, since in that case he would also be dissolved along with the world, and there would remain no one to reap the benefit of this dissolution. And what is more serious, there would be really none whom the Shruti could urge to dissolve multiplicity. Again, in texts like Atman is to be seen, words like Drashtavyaha to be seen, Shrotavyaha to be heard about, can only mean pay attention and can never prompt anyone to effect knowledge itself. For the knowledge of a thing solely depends on the means of knowledge and its object. No knowledge can be born even by the urging in contradiction of the knowledge already known to be otherwise by some other means of valid knowledge. Nacha pramanantarena अन्यथा प्रसिद्धे अर्थे अन्यथा ज्ञानम नियुक्तस्य अपि उपपद्यते. If on the other hand one thinks of a thing as other than what it really is, on the score of his being urged by the Shruti, that would not be a valid knowledge, but only a mental action due to one's will. यदि पुनर्नियुक्तोऽहम् इत्यन्यथा ज्ञानं कुर्वीत न तज्ज्ञानं किं तर्हि मानसी क्रिया. If the knowledge so arises of its own accord, it would be only a delusion. We shall take up this criticism of Niyogavada in more detail in the next issue. It would be profitable to summarize the chief reason which weighed with the Niyogavadins when they insisted that some Niyoga or prompting on the part of the Vedas is necessary if they are to be regarded as a means of valid knowledge at all. The very first condition that a pramana should satisfy before it is admitted to be pramana is that it should be a means of knowledge which is not already known through some other means. All orthodox Vedantins, therefore, are agreed that the Upanishads, no less than Karma Kanda texts of the Vedas, are means of valid knowledge for the simple reason that they teach some transcendental facts not ascertainable by perception for any other secular means of valid knowledge. It is therefore quite understandable that all advocates of Vedic injunction of meditation should have made sustained effort to present a united front to the tradition of absolutism, which insists that the Upanishads merely purport to reveal the nature of the already existent Atman. This divergence of opinion should not be regarded as one of merely academical interest, for both the conditioning portions seriously held that the knowledge of the one Brahman or Atman is the only means to attain the highest goal of human life. Both the schools seriously maintain that this knowledge enables the aspirant to reach goal from which there is no return to transmigratory life, as is the case with those who reach heaven, Swarga, by virtue of religious aids performed. Of course, there is this one difference of opinion amongst these believers, that whereas some hold that the goal is reached after the fall of this body, others grant that the ultimate goal is possible of attainment in the very life in which knowledge of Atman ripens. So, here the 26th point ends. Next 27th point we shall see in the next session. Hare Rama. Sadguru Charanarpitamastu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Sajjana santu nirbhayaha. Om Tat Sat.